Hello, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Kit, your friendly feminist cat lady spinster, and today we're going to talk about Matt Walsh. So, back in January, Matt Walsh posted a video on his YouTube channel talking about how the modern dating scene is a toxic wasteland, which is really interesting because he's been married for, 10, 11, 12 years, and he has 4 kids. So I'm not really sure how much of the current dating scene he knows, and yeah, his recommendations were not a surprise. He and Classically Abby would have a lot in common. Although I don't think Classically Abby would go so far as to suggest arranged marriages, but you never know, that might be the next new right-wing thing, arranged marriage. But yeah, let's just dive on in and see what this married man has to say about dating in 2022.
Dating is the issue. And this story reveals its myriad pitfalls in our current climate.
So the story he's referring to is the tale of West Elm Caleb, and I don't see how that's the story that made him decide dating is bad.
The whole scene is one big pit that so many millions fall into and never manage to escape. Marriage rates are plummeting rapidly and historically in this country, so that as of just 2 years ago, less than half of the households in the U.S. consisted of married couples and families. Now, to put that in perspective, in 1950, that number was 80%.
And in 1950, a young woman pregnant out of wedlock would visit a relative for a few months.
So it used to be 80% of the households featured a married couple, was a family with a married couple. Now it's less than half. And the numbers are still trending downward.
Yeah, marriage is a largely religious institution, and as Americans become less religious, I can see how marriage would become less important.
There are numerous reasons for this catastrophic shift, but certainly one of the most prominent reasons is that our social system for matching people up, pairing them off, and setting them on the path towards marriage and parenthood and real adult life is fundamentally broken.
But have no fear. This man who has not been single in over a decade is going to tell us how to fix dating.
So for one thing, everyone, of course, is using dating apps now, which are different even from the dating sites of ancient times back in the early 2000s when I was single. We had the dating websites. And
you can still use dating websites if you want to, and people still meet out in the wild.
Back then, you would fill out a lengthy profile, and you'd be given in return a comparatively small group of potential matches to contact.
Yeah, because back in the days he's referencing, online dating was seen as something that only nerdy losers who couldn't find someone in real life did. Therefore, not a lot of people were online dating.
But now those old-fashioned websites have been replaced by apps which are much easier to use and to peruse, and most people have more than one that they monitor at any given time. It doesn't require any effort or commitment to use the apps, and the user sort of swipes through it very quickly, casually discarding potential matches based on nothing but a cursory glance at their photograph. So all judgments are made visually.
So I know it's been a while since Matt was single and ready to mingle, but how is that different from meeting someone at the grocery store or a bar or whatever? There is, or at least there was, a thing in Seattle where you could go to a darkened restaurant and meet people in the dark, but that's not really the ordinary way people date. So, but unless you do it that way, you'll be visually meeting people first. You won't know about their personality until you get to know them. So whether he likes it or not, first judgments are always made off appearance.
Which already distorts the entire process because a woman's romantic attraction is not naturally as visually based as a man's.
Yeah, I'll leave some links down below that dispute that outdated notion. But anyway, either way, if you're looking at someone's picture on Tinder or whatever, and you're looking at someone, I don't know, at a meetup group or something, you're still being visually attracted when you meet them, whether you're meeting them online or off.
And that's how a slovenly ogre like myself ends up marrying a hot woman. Because a woman is attracted to personality, sense of humor, intelligence.
And we can sense all that about you the first time we lay eyes on you.
But little of that translates through an app, which means that many quality mates are sent to the junk folder just because they're bad at taking selfies.
Or they don't write good profiles, which, not everyone is good at writing, and writing about yourself is especially tricky.
Meanwhile, there are far too many choices.
That depends on where you live.
So the modern dating scene is what happens when every beggar becomes a chooser. Everyone is lonely and desperate for companionship, but the field is so flooded with options, there's such a surplus, that you begin to feel kind of like I feel when I'm in the condiment aisle at Walmart trying to buy mustard.
Oh, man, no.
And there are 197 different types of mustard, and though all I want is just regular mustard, the overwhelming array of options paralyzes me, and I'm just standing there slack-jawed, questioning whether I should be settling for just regular mustard when I could be getting gourmet, Dijon, whole grain, honey French, yellow, spicy brown, white, yellow, German mustard instead.
First off, People are not mustard. I can't believe I have to say that. And second off, just buy the one that looks most appealing. Try it. If you don't like it, next time, buy a different one. Actually, this kind of describe how dating works. You go on a date with someone, you don't click, so you go on a date with someone else.
All of modern life is plagued by this problem. Everything is plentiful and can be obtained effortlessly and cheaply. But it's too plentiful and too effortless and too cheap.
You haven't had to date in over a decade.
So you can turn on your TV and watch literally any movie that's ever been made, any TV show that's ever been produced. And yet how many nights have you wasted scrolling through the infinite catalog and then settling on reruns of, The Office because there's nothing else to watch? Well, there's plenty to watch. It's just that you can't settle on any one thing.
But you just said they settled on watching The Office.
Because your awareness that there are billions of other possibilities gives you anxiety. And it makes it so that you can never be sure that you're choosing the absolute best option, which means that often you don't choose anything at all. So dating is like this now.
Where is he getting his intel from?
Whereas before you had only the eligible single people in your town to choose from, now you have the entire internet.
Yeah, and that's what leads to me finding a note in my cousin's bedroom from her friend saying that she was worried she was pregnant with her cousin's baby. More options are not always a bad thing.
You're not confined by geographic boundaries or any other boundaries.
Technically that's true, but most people still prefer to date within a drivable distance. It's a whole lot easier that way, and then should you get serious, you don't have to wonder about who is going to uproot their entire life and move across the country, or to a different country entirely, to continue that relationship.
The result, ironically, is paralysis. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum are arranged marriages. Instead of a boundless, never-ending buffet of options, a young person in a culture that practices arranged marriages will be assigned just one, and they don't even make the choice.
Some of his commentary has been described by media outlets as trolling.
Their families just pair them up and say, here you go.
Ah, yes. Arranged marriages. As American as apple pie.
There's far less freedom and far less autonomy in a system of that sort, but it is without a doubt superior to our system.
Says the man who freely chose his own wife. And also, what happened to conservatives being all about freedom?
We would be happier. Every person in the dating scene right now would be happier if they were just matched up with someone against their will. Actually.
Cannot tell if trolling or serious, but based on the if they were matched up against their will, I'm going with the former.
Of course, even after you settle on a match and you meet them in person, a whole new set of problem arises. It would be impossible to review the whole list, but one of the big problems is that if you're in the younger generations, you're meeting someone who was raised on the internet, just like you. Having spent their formative years staring at screens, they oftentimes will not have developed the kind of interests and hobbies and rich interior life that could form the basis for conversation and for interpersonal bonding.
If I was someone under 30, I would be feeling vaguely insulted right about now.
You also don't know where to go on a date or what to do because nobody wants to do anything but stare at their phones.
Matt, if your friends spend more time staring at their phones than paying attention to you when you're having friend time, maybe you just need better friends.
And as the relationship progresses, if it does, you'll find that the internet also interferes with emotional intimacy because there's nothing private or sacred between you. Private life doesn't exist anymore, especially for younger people. People live their whole lives in public, sharing everything with the world. Please
let me know in the comments if that has been your experience.
And leaving no parts of themselves, emotionally or very often physically, that are special or exclusive for their significant other. And then there's the biggest hurdle of all, one which has been standing in the way ever since the modern concept of dating was first invented decades ago, but which has only grown larger and more insurmountable as the decades have gone by, and that is there's no goal with dating. There's no endpoint. There's no resolution. There's no logical progression.
What? The goal of dating is whatever you want it to be. Just make sure you share that with the person you're dating. That way you can see if your goals align and you're compatible that way.
So those women complain about getting ghosted by Caleb, but what are they really complaining about? Did they see him as marriage material? Were they even looking for a man to marry? I'm guessing not.
Why are you guessing that, Matt? Do you know these women at all?
And if not, then their relationship with Caleb was doomed to fall apart anyway, sooner than later, just as all of their other relationships before and since have. What difference does it make if he disappears after one date or if he sticks around and the whole thing dissolves after 3 months? Who cares? You're just hopping into one car after another and each is going over a cliff. Does it really matter if it tumbles over the edge after 1 mile or 10?
Whew. He seems a little mad that people aren't dating for marriage. Or rather, he seems a little mad that he assumes people aren't dating for marriage.
The whole enterprise is so fundamentally hopeless and pointless that, if anything, the Calebs of the world do you a favor by wasting less of your time.
Yeah, I would rather be ghosted in the beginning than after you've established something. A friend of mine ghosted his fiancée after they were engaged for 3 years. I can only imagine the hurt and confusion that would cause.
So here's the reality. There's no reason to be dating at all unless you're specifically looking for somebody to marry. If you have no interest in marriage, then all of your romantic relationships are doomed before they start.
Just because you don't get married doesn't mean your relationship is doomed. Some people just aren't into marriage, and that's okay. And also, just because a relationship didn't last until one of you died, it doesn't mean it was a failure.
You're building sandcastles during high tide. It's all going to be washed away before it can be finished. You're making a series of bad emotional investments, pouring yourself into one leaky container after another. It's no wonder that marriage rates are plummeting. People are exhausted by romantic relationships and jaded by the whole enterprise before they even reach 25 years old, because they've been betrayed and heartbroken and dumped and humiliated enough for 50 lifetimes. That's what happens when you take the courtship out of dating. Only solution is to put it back in.
So first he wanted to do arranged marriage, and now he wants to put courtship back in dating. Okay.
I mean, really forget about dating completely, in fact. Replace dating with courting. Don't waste your time on people who have no goal for their relationship, because marriage should always be the desired endpoint.
Why?
Courting is the trial period, the interview process that both partners are undergoing. You're interviewing each other for the job. If you approach it dating that way, it will significantly reduce your options. That's for sure. But as we've seen, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
So, based on what we've seen today, I'm pretty convinced that Matt Walsh is a troll, but he has a tendency to mix his trolling in with things that actually hurt and affect people, and that puts him on my shit list. But anyway, if you're dating, just make sure that you're upfront and honest about what your intentions are, and make sure you set boundaries. So if someone tells you they're dating for marriage and you're not comfortable with that idea, be honest. If someone tells you they're just casually dating and you want to find someone to marry, be honest. Don't ever think that, well, once they get to know me, they'll change their mind and want to marry me, or if I go along with it, I'll be okay having casual sex with this person. Just know yourself and don't let yourself be pressured into doing things that you don't want to do or that you're not comfortable with. Anyway, that is Dear Kit for the day. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great day, and I will see you next week. Bye.